What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Sunday, October 19th, 2025, and I have an emergency alert to share with you guys. Right now, it is 15:55 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have US and Russian nuclear forces on very high alert today and also yesterday. In case you guys weren't watching the live stream late last night at around 2 a.m. Eastern Time, that's 0200 Eastern Time, we had a flurry of Russian nuclear codes, and these nuclear codes were being transmitted to Russia's nuclear armed submarines, and some of them were the highest priority Russian nuclear codes known as the monolith. There were at least 2 Russian monoliths transmitted last night. These are like the equivalent of US Sky King messages. Okay, so these are the highest priority nuclear codes sent out to Russia's nuclear armed submarines. You can think of them as directives or targeting information. They're not actual launch codes, but they're directives or targeting information, okay, for the Russian nuclear armed subs. All right, so we were monitoring this live last night from about 2 a.m. to about 3:30 a.m. It was very intense. There were probably about 24 of these Russian nuclear codes. And what's very interesting is at the same time as the Russians were transmitting nuclear codes, the US was transmitting nuclear codes, and in several instances, they were actually transmitting at the same exact time. So I'm going to play an example of that for you, but we heard it at least 3 or 4 times where the Russians were transmitting their encrypted nuclear codes to their nuclear armed submarines, and at the same time the US would start transmitting their voice codes known as emergency action messages. So I don't know if this was some kind of posturing by both sides and the US was waiting for the Russians to transmit, and then they would transmit at the same time to kind of let the Russians know, hey, we're also on high alert. I don't know if it was sort of like a tit for tat situation, or just thinking outside of the box. What if Putin and Trump created some kind of an alliance with that phone call they had, and maybe this was some kind of joint US-Russian nuclear exercise? I don't know, but it was really bizarre to hear the US nuclear codes transmitting right at the same time as the Russians. What would happen is the Russian code would start, and then maybe after a minute or two, the US code would start. It was very strange, but here's an example. So you're going to hear an English voice reading off alphanumeric words, and then you're going to also hear like a beeping noise in the background. The beeping noise is the Russian encrypted nuclear code, and the voice is the American unencrypted nuclear code. All right? So I'm not going to make you sit through and listen to the whole thing, but you get the idea, all right? And this was going on for at least an hour back to back, and the Russians usually hardly ever transmit codes like this. So if they're transmitting codes, it means that something is going on, something unusual. All right, so something's going on. I don't know what it is, but the Russians are on high alert. They transmitted at least 2 monoliths last night. And if you're a radio geek, you're going to know what a monolith is. For those of you guys who are not radio geeks and you know zero about radios, This is basically the highest priority Russian nuclear code below a launch order from Putin. Okay? So Russia's nuclear forces are on very high alert. And interestingly, right now, this afternoon, we have a U.S. nuclear war command and control plane off the coast of New Jersey. It took off from Patuxent River, which is their East Coast home base, and it's looping right over the Hudson Canyon, right off the continental shelf. And you'll notice here that it's doing this perfect oval loop, and looks like a pill. If you look at it, it looks like a pill, like a medicine pill. All right, and the reason why it's flying like that is it's deploying its trailing wire antenna. It has a 1 mile long antenna, and they also have 5 mile long antennas, and they reel them out the back of the plane. They have like a giant reel, and they reel them out, and then they have to fly in this loop so the antenna can stay sort of in a vertical position. And when the antenna's in a vertical position, then they can start sending VLF messages down through the water to reach the submarines, because the submarines are deep underwater and regular radio frequencies cannot penetrate. High frequencies, medium frequencies cannot penetrate and travel far to reach the subs, okay? So the only way that the subs can get codes, launch codes from the president, is through these planes and also through ground-based stations in Cutler, Maine, Jim Creek, Washington, in Hualaway, Hawaii, and then also at the Harold Holt facility in Australia. Those are the ground-based transmitters, but these planes are the mobile transmitters, okay? So this is very concerning. So what this means is the U.S. is actively transmitting targeting codes to our submarines, our nuclear-armed submarines, right now on a Sunday afternoon, which is very unusual timing, okay? And this is coming just hours after the Russians transmitted their highest priority nuclear codes to their submarines, okay? So what is going on, guys? I don't know. And on Friday, we had some kind of long-range radar, a nuclear war radar that was activated, and it was so powerful that it could be heard globally. So I'm going to play a clip for you. This is the radar in Europe being heard loud and clear in Europe. Listen. And now here's North America. You can hear that the North American and the European stations sound the same, which means that the signal is so strong that it's clear in both North America and Europe. The amount of juice, the amount of power you need to send a signal out like this is like enough to power a small city, okay? So something big is going on. I'm not exactly sure what. We also had a record-long nuclear code transmitted by the U.S. earlier in the week, a 288-character nuclear code. Their standard length is 30 characters, so this is almost 10 times as long as a standard nuclear code. This is the longest one I've ever heard. I don't think anyone's heard anything longer than this. But let me just play a small sample for you.
Hotel, Foxtrot, India, Uniform, Alpha, 6. This completes message of 288 characters. This is Concourse out.
So you could hear he said, this completes message of 288 characters. This is Concourse out. And the message was so long, He was literally reading for 15 minutes or more nonstop because he has to repeat the message, and the message lasted about 8 minutes, so 16 minutes of nonstop reading. Also, this afternoon we had a nuke sniffer up in the air, and it was accompanied by 2 aerial refuelers, which is very strange. So I don't know what's going on, why they have a nuke sniffer up in the air. Also, we had the largest U.S. military cargo plane depart from Puerto Rico last night. So likely we dropped off a lot of equipment, U.S. military weaponry, to Puerto Rico to forward deploy it, to stage it for an attack on Venezuela, okay, which is coming, okay, and we're hearing from various sources now that the Trump administration actually wants regime change, okay? So the Financial Times is reporting, citing sources, that Trump actually wants to get rid of Maduro, that he's interested in a regime change. It's not about the drugs, okay? But we must have moved a lot of weaponry if a C-5 left Puerto Rico, okay? Also, earlier today, we had a strategic airlift plane leave from eastern Poland in the city of Lublin, southeastern Poland. A SAC heavy airlift wing C-17 left southeastern Poland. So they must have dropped off some strategic cargo, okay? SAC is strategic airlift, okay? We're not talking about, spare bolts and two-way radios and BDUs. We're talking about something strategic, okay? Some kind of missile system, like maybe Tomahawk missiles, maybe Typhoon systems for Ukraine to use to launch against Russia, or maybe they're going to give them to Poland as well. Maybe Poland is secretly buying Tomahawks and Typhoon systems. We know that the Ukrainian defense delegation that was in the U.S. this past week, because Zelensky met with Trump on Friday, that delegation met with Raytheon, who makes the Tomahawks, and Lockheed, who makes the ground launch vehicles, the Typhoon. Okay? So I don't know what was said between Putin and Trump, but I have a hard time believing that everything is all good and dandy. I have a feeling that this peace talk in Hungary with Trump and Putin may not happen. All right, we're going to have to find out, but something is going on here. Okay, a strategic airlift plane flying from Poland. All right, so they might have moved Tomahawks already, pre-positioning them in case Putin does not change course and continues his maximalist demands and continues attacking Ukraine. Then they'll be right there, right on the border of Ukraine, to be transferred. Also, we had a high-priority Polish reconnaissance plane leave a Polish air base in Minsk Mazowiecki, which is just east of Warsaw. This is a very important air base for Poland's fighter jets. It hosts international fighter wings as well. It looks like scrambled from the air base. It literally flew straight towards the Belarus border in the area of the Białowieża forest, which is the oldest forest in Europe, and it happens to be the area where the Białowieża Accords were signed on the Belarusian side of the forest to dissolve the Soviet Union, but it was flying up and down along the border here of Belarus. So what was it investigating? Very, very concerning. And also, for the third night in a row, a U.S. sub-hunter was deployed off the coast of Russia's Northern Fleet base up in Murmansk on the Kola Peninsula near northern Finland. Okay, that's where Russia has 2/3 of their nuclear-armed subs. This is the third night in a row that this P-8 Poseidon sub-hunter has been deployed here. And then we heard the Russian subs getting those monolith codes last night, all the nuclear codes going out to the Russian subs. So I don't know what's going on, but something is going on, okay? But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I wanted to just quickly update you guys. I will potentially be back later on tonight around midnight. And follow me on Telegram, Twitter, and Patreon. The links are in the description down below. I've been posting updates to my Twitter throughout the day, and I've been keeping my followers on Patreon in the loop of any major news, okay? So follow me over there, and until later on, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere. And this video was sponsored by Just In Case Holsters. Guys, you need to get yourself a high quality holster for your personal defense weapon. And the company I recommend for high quality leather holsters is Just In Case Holsters. Now, these holsters are made in the USA by a veteran. And the holster that I really love for carrying a firearm in the woods is the Kodiak chest holster. I have one of these for my 357 Magnum, and the leather is really thick, really heavy duty, really beautiful, holds the firearm nicely, and you can draw the weapon very quickly, which is important in a personal defense situation. Now, he has a whole variety of holsters, not just these open carry chest holsters, but if you want to browse around their website, use the link in the description. It's justincaseholsters.com, and I have a special promo code that's going to give you 10% off of all of their products on their website, and the promo code is NYPrepper, and that's also in the description. So justincaseholsters.com. Use the promo code NYPrepper to get 10% off of any leather products on their website.